Hey guys, what's up? It's Two Tall Tom here, playing a little bit of the new Resident Evil. I felt the need to make this video because I missed a week on that podcast, which was, I think, going pretty well. But I kind of want to give my side of it because I'm thinking of just I probably won't be continuing the podcast. Um, basically, uh, if you've been watching the podcast, you know that I've talked about World of Warcraft and whatnot, and how me and Nia met through World of Warcraft, through our guild. Well, basically the guild that he joined. And to give you a little bit of backstory, and I think you'll understand why I felt the need to kind of cut ties and whatnot. So when Nia joined the guild, he was only um, level 100. I think he had just recently bought the game, so he was leveling up, and he saw our guild ad, which was, we're a bunch of kind of social misfits, and we don't care what you say, so feel free to join us. Which was the gist of it. It was a little bit longer, but I don't remember the exact thing. So, he joined us. Here, I'm gonna move my mic closer just in case it's a little bit quiet. So he joined up with us, and over a couple weeks, he leveled his character to 110. Was chatting with us. We were trying to give him tips like he didn't like questing, which is understandable. Questing can get really monotonous and boring. Um, and he eventually got to 110. Now, once he got to 110, he wanted to get to top tier raid content, which I think a lot of people do when they first play the game, especially if they're a hardcore gamer. So I can't fault him for that. Um, so we had one of the officers, out of the goodness of his heart, decided to start helping Nia. So he, helped him run through some dungeons and uh, basically bought him a decent amount of gear, which in World of Warcraft currently there's this gear you can get with gold, which is made through one of the professions, which can upgrade to around, I think, 865, depending on how much uh, materials you put into it and whatnot, which is a very good boost, seeing as the normal raid gear at the time was only about 850. So obviously that's a very good way to get a boost up. So he spent about 15,000 gold getting this gear for Nia, and ended up running some mythics with him to get him gear as well, which he ended up getting, I think, a legendary from his first mythic, if I'm not mistaken. So basically, things were going pretty well. I was chatting with Nia when I logged in some days, and then randomly I log in, and I noticed that Nia had left the guild, and I think he whispered me that day and kind of explained his position. He was, doing pretty well. He wanted to get into a heroic raiding guild. We weren't raiding that often, um, and he wanted to progress further. Which, at the time, not knowing, any of the backstory would have happened, I'm like, you know what, that's understandable. You've been really driven. You've gotten a lot of your gear, so, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. I understand. But it seemed like a lot of the officers and the GM were incredibly bitter towards him leaving, which seemed kind of weird for me, because I'm like, well, he got all his gear, so, and we don't really raid that often, so I don't understand why you guys are pissed off at him, like really pissed off. So eventually I asked, and he gave me that one of the officers gave me that story about how he basically, from their perspective, he used them to get to a higher position, so that way he could join this other heroic raiding guild and just screw off, just immediately leave. And it was honestly like a slap to the face of the people that helped him out, because typically in World of Warcraft, vanilla had, it was, you can see in Nosarius, it was a very good social atmosphere. It was a lot harder to find groups, and in all honesty, the reputation that you built up in the server affected you wherever you went. Like in real life, if you're a complete asshole at your jobs and then apply for a new job and they call, they're gonna be like, I wouldn't hire that guy because he's kind of an asshole. It's the same kind of thing. He, you know, but now with World of Warcraft, through Raid Finder, which is an automated thing where you can play with people across the servers, Group Finder, which is the same kind of thing, you know, you could have a terrible reputation on your server and still get into every group just because you have the right gear. So it almost incentivizes people to screw each other over to get the best gear, and then they can get into the top guilds, because the servers no longer give you a reputation. People just no longer care about who you are on the server and what you were like and that kind of stuff. So it's... I can kind of see both sides of the story where, you know what, we weren't raiding a lot. Sadly, recently we had a guildmate pass away, which has kind of killed all drive for most of us to play the game, really. I think other officers would not only log in maybe once a week for a dungeon. And even myself, I find it hard to keep logging into play, mostly because the social atmosphere is gone. The guild's, you know, becoming... It's just kind of dying because no raids are being put together, so people don't feel a need to stay in the guild, so a lot of people have just been leaving, and I'm probably going to be taking another break from World of Warcraft once this current sub runs out, so I can play more stuff like Resident Evil or some of the other new games that are coming out. But after I learned that, I kind of understand why they were so bitter towards Nia, because, you know, it's very rare now in World of Warcraft to find a good social interaction. Like, to see people that actually care. Like, a good example of the opposite was the guildmate who passed away. And, you know, it was really sad because his story was, you know, he was playing World of Warcraft, and he was another person who was new. And he was very driven as well, much like Nia. And he was in a guild that was like, oh, you know, go get this gear, keep gearing up so you can come raid with us, keep gearing up. But no one was willing to actually help him out. So he ended up just, you know, trying to level another character just to kind of take a break from the character that he was putting so much time in, which can easily burn you out of the game. They kicked him because he was leveling a different character and not gearing up his main character. Which... Once he joined our guild, he's one of the best players in our guild, or he was. And he was a great person, like, he had a great personality. It was a real shock when he passed away for us, because it was like losing a good friend that you've had, that you've just not had for a while, but you just met, and you can see that, like, you're going to get along really well, and then they're gone. And I know life is just like that, but it was really sad. And the fact that, you know, Nia had the same kind of treatment from our guild where we're willing to help and whatnot, and then he just left. Kind of just spat in the face of a lot of the officers. So when I heard that, I lost a lot of respect for him. And I know he's going to watch this, and that's why I want to put this out, so that way he understands my point. Where, you know, the podcast was entertaining. I feared that it was just going to become another anti-social justice warrior thing, which there's plenty of in this atmosphere right now. I prefer to just speak my mind on current topics and not have to, you know, be put into some camp like the left or the alt-right or whatever. I just like to play video games, so I think it's best that I just focus on my college. I focus on working out, and I focus on my job, and then maybe do YouTube somewhere in between when I find time. But I didn't want to leave you guys hanging, as if you guys were actually enjoying the podcast. If you guys really like me on a podcast, I can see what I can do talking to some of my personal friends and maybe putting together a good podcast. But other than that, I think it'll be once in a while uploads. But I thank you guys for watching, and I'm going to get back to getting the shit scared out of me on this game. If you want my quick synopsis, definitely get it if you're into horror games. It's a very entertaining game. It seems fairly on the rails at the beginning, where it's like a lot of scripted events and whatnot. But once you get into the main house, it gets a lot more organic, and I really like it. I find the story interesting, even though I'm a baby for horror games. So hopefully this will pop my cherry, as it were, for those type of games. But I really thank you guys for watching, you devoted subscribers. I love you guys. You know, you 12 views are the reason I keep making videos, because at least someone's watching them. So I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you have a great week.